My name is Hamad Abdullah. I was born and raised in Pakistan. I came to Canada as an international student in 2021. Right now, I am working as a volunteer with Museum of North Vancouver on an exhibition which tries to capture the experiences of immigrant communities in North Vancouver. With me today is Satendra Mann. Can you tell us a bit about yourself? Just a brief introduction.
I've lived on the North Shore for most of my life. I've immigrated from India, and my family is Punjabi, from the state of Punjab originally, but we lived in Rajasthan actually. My family immigrated in the 70s, kind of early mid 70s, so about 50 years ago. And I was very young when we immigrated with my family. And initially, actually, we lived in Squamish. We went from, India to Squamish, which was a bit bizarre. But so my father had work lined up there, found work, and my uncle lived there. So we moved to Squamish and lived there for about 10 years. And then we moved to the North Shore, and we've been here more or less ever since then. So I'm really happy to call this beautiful place my home.
So, how, over time, how have you come to terms with these words, right? Home, belonging, like how have you resolved these kind of conflicts that you felt very acutely when you were growing up?
Sorry, you do have a sense of that your culture is something you have to kind of hide, and the urge to assimilate and fit in is kind of a big one. And actually, I mean, Squamish is such a different place, but back then it was a little bit hostile and a little bit violent, and it was a good idea to kind of not really focus on your otherness, to try to kind of fit in. And I found that, I personally didn't experience a lot of direct racism, but it was there, and it was, I felt like assimilation was kind of important. So I think I tried to sort of fit in and as much as I could. We moved to North Vancouver. I mean, North Vancouver was also a more tolerant place, and than Squamish was at the time.
As an immigrant woman, you might have some very difficult choices to make, right? On the one hand, you have your own community, your own culture, and on the other hand, you also want to live this independent or a different life than the life of many other women in the in kind of this patriarchal culture of Punjab or South Asia. So how can you talk to us more about this dilemma of being an immigrant woman?
I think, there was a little bit of process, a big process of working through the identity of a female, a female in an Indian sort of context that I think was also very, much a part of that I had to sort of come to terms with. I think that sense of belonging, that I always wanted, a place to belong to. I think with that comes, like you mentioned, a box, that you have to kind of fit in. So there's kind of some cultural parameters that, come with belonging, and if you don't belong in that sense, like, you might not belong if you're gay, or if you're, if you've got a single mother or something like that. There's a kind of a set of conventions that apply. And so I think one of the things that I had to work through was, could I be the kind of Indian female, some of the things that are part of that. And I found those kind of roles, very different. And so I realized that, that wasn't really that suited to me. So I think another thing that helped me sort of feel comfort with who I am is that I realized that there's so many people that share the experiences, you know, that it doesn't have to be about being Indian, but maybe it's the immigrant experience, you know. So I have a lot of, you know, I don't know, Japanese or Persian or Asian friends that actually have a very similar experience to mine, that we can connect as, you know, kind of immigrants, you know, that came through. So I realized that my life was actually, I shared so many things with so many people, and that provides a kind of comfort that, you know, this is a place where I have shared experiences, and, you know, there is a richness to the fact that I, you know, have two cultures, Western and an Indian culture, that, you know, helped me arrive at who I am. So I feel very comfortable. I mean, in a way, I've stopped thinking about it. It's just become my life, you know, and feels good.
How do you see these things changing over time? Do you see the children going through similar experiences?
This is kind of a goofy story, but I had this one best friend, and she was white, and she would come and sleep over at my place, like maybe 3 days a week, right? She was always at my place, and I never, you know, allowed my mom to serve Indian food to her. We always had Campbell's tomato soup with toast. You know, I was just so ashamed of what we ate, you know, and now, like my nieces and nephews, I mean, they take Indian food to school, you know, for their lunches, and other kids want to like have it, you know, and, you know, I mean, my little niece, she's like 6 or 7 years old, and she wears like her fancy Indian outfits to school. And it's like, you know, the ultimate princess dress, you know, she's so proud of it, and other kids love it. I mean, it's, you know, so times have really changed, and there's so much exposure, you know, to other cultures. Also, there's a lot of like, you know, mixed kids. My nieces and nephews are, and you know, there's so much of that, you know, so that there's this real kind of, you know, sort of integration, but people not necessarily losing, you know, their cultures, just kind of, you know, embracing it.
Thank you so much, Satendra ji.